Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Don Gulling, CEO of Vertex Consulting. Appreciate you joining us today. We've got a lot of content we want to present, and we're excited to have you here. I also want to let you know that if you've got questions or concerns or issues that are relevant to today's training, feel free to use the either chat or questions windows. We'll make every effort to try to include answers live real time during the webinar. If for some reason we're not able to answer the question live or integrate it into the training, then I promise you we will follow up as soon as the webinar is over to make sure you get either the answers that you need or that we schedule a follow-up call with you one-on-one to either get you some additional training or whatever resources you need so you can be effective with this system. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep you happy with it and also to make sure you're aware of what it can do to help you and your clients. Wanted to also give a shout out to my team and to everyone who registered today. We've had a campaign this year where we're trying to do as much give back as we can to the community. A lot of people are still affected by the pandemic. I know most of us aren't. We've got jobs and all that, but a lot of people are still hurting. In our local area here in Ocala, we have a food bank that we support. I'm a big believer in Interfaith Foundation. They do a wonderful job, very low cost. Always been very effective with the food bank. Amazingly, a third of the people they support are veterans that are homeless. They've also got about a third of them are children. So essentially, 2/3 of the folks they're supporting are either children or veterans. We try to make sure that we're doing our best to help those. So in honor of your signing up and attending today, we're donating $20 per attendee to Interfaith Food Bank. And that's part of our ongoing effort to try to support our community. I'm also proud of the Vertex team for having 100% participation in a local United Way campaign. We've done that for several years now. And I'm proud to say that the Vertex team, our United Way campaign is one of the top 5 fundraising campaigns for the United Way in our community. So kudos to the team for stepping up to help out and doing that on an ongoing basis. I'm really proud of their effort to do that. Lastly, we also donate our time and talent. And so a lot of the local charities like the Boys and Girls Club, as an example, we do all their IT and all that's free. So we like to do what we can to help those around us and make our community a better place. And you enable that. So thank you for supporting us so we can support our community. I wanted to highlight one of our partners briefly, not a sales pitch, but I've had a lot of questions about this recently. And people have asked, is there any way for us to get maybe even better analytics beyond bright metrics or contact center reporting, or maybe some automated tools to help us with scheduling or automated agent evaluation? We're proud to partner with DVSAnalytics. DVSAnalytics is a Mitel solutions partner. It's a vetted, proven integration. And DVSAnalytics has several options. One of the ones you can get is this kind of at-a-glance dashboard. Quickly see areas that need immediate attention, spot trends that impact agent performance or your customer experience. And that's and across the board. You can use that in small contact centers, large ones, you name it. Very helpful. In addition to having that tool, we've also got workforce management. If you're in a situation, we've seen a lot of people in where staffing is really a critical challenge right now, and you've got somebody calling out sick potentially, you might need to rebalance your contact center queues on the fly immediately. And that can be incredibly difficult, especially if you've got skills-based or whatever. So we do want to point out, if you're looking for an automated way to do that, potentially to reduce management effort or make it easier on you, there are automated tools like DVS that can take in data from historical and look at your skills and look at your metrics for success in the call center and your customer care strategy. And based on that data, and automatically create a workforce schedule for you. Then somebody in the morning calls out at 7 o'clock, you can literally take them out and say, hey, I need to rebalance the schedule. On the fly, this can rebalance your schedules, change breaks, change departure times, notify all the agents, and then also show you real-time analytics if people are adhering to that. So very cool. It allows you to do real-time changes, look at your service levels, manage shift types, rotational shifts. You can even do shift swapping. So very cool stuff there. It's super easy to use, all graphical. And then it'll let you know, are agents kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of logging in and logging out at the right times, taking breaks at the right times, taking their training at the right time, and so on. So not really a plug, but I have been asked by a lot of people to what can we do to help with the issues we're facing in terms of staffing. And so workforce management is one of them. I do see someone saying that they don't have any audio. Hopefully everybody else has audio. Please let me know if you don't have any audio. I know, oh, she's good. All right, Gwen. So that's DVSAnalytics. If you're interested in learning more about kind of automated workforce management or automated agent evaluation, so a system kind of take that burden off your hands, do it for you. This is a great tool. We have a great support system with DVS. And my favorite thing about them, not a plug, this is awesome. They have a return on investment calculator you could show to a superior that shows you this thing's going to pay for itself in savings in terms of management time, management overhead, agent loss, agent training curve, all that stuff. So if you're interested, let me know. Otherwise, we're glad to help you in other ways too. So those are my slides. We're going to pivot to Steve. While we do that, I want to introduce Steve Hall. Brittany's going to make him the presenter. Steve has been with Vertex for a long, long time. Steve is our absolute #1 most experienced contact center guru. He's an expert at Mitel Contact Center. He's also an expert in reporting and all the other things we're going to talk about today. Really glad to have Steve on because every time he presents, he does a much more thorough job than me. And a lot of times I pick up stuff from this I never even realized. So in preparation for today's meeting, Steve told me a couple things he was going to cover. And I had 2 of the, I didn't even know you could do that moments. So really excited to have Steve present today. I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of it. Thank you for joining. At the very end, I might jump back on again to talk a little bit about some advanced reporting. Otherwise, Steve, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Don. Good morning, everyone. As Don mentioned, I want to share with you guys some training on the contact center reports for the MyVoice Connect system. The built-in contact center has a couple built-in tools for reporting. And at the end, Don mentioned we also want to show some advanced reporting tools. So with the MyVoice Connect Contact Center, there's a piece of software called the Supervisor software that contains 2 reporting tools. The first one is referred to as the Agent Manager, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like here. So this is the Agent Manager. You log in with the same credentials that you would use for your Connect client. All right, Connect Agent Manager. So as you can see here, the first time you launch this software, you're going to get essentially a blank slate here that you can use to start pulling up different reports. The Agent Manager piece is the what they refer to as the real-time reporting tool. So this is the tool we're going to use to see what's going on in the contact center, right now or throughout the day. Something to keep an eye on to see how things are moving. So we start out here with a blank slate, and the first thing we're going to want to do, if this is the very first time we've used the software, is start opening up some new reports. So right here we got the option to select a new report. And as you see, there are several built-in report templates that we can choose from. Very importantly, over here, we have 3 different report types. They're what are called real-time reports, hourly summary reports, and daily summary reports. So depending on which of those you choose, you're going to see some different report templates available. The real-time reports, like I said, show you what's happening right now in the contact center or over the current interval. And an interval is something that's defined in the contact center director for each group. We can define an interval as maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, so that you can see, how many calls have we taken this particular slice of time. Daily summaries can give you just that, kind of a count ongoing throughout the day. How many calls has this group taken or that group taken, or that agent or whatnot. So under the one of the reports I like to pull up here, one of the most valuable reports is the daily detailed group report. When you open that up, the first thing it's going to ask you is, what group do you want to target this report at? So this report looks at a single group, and you select which group you want to look at. And I'm going to select inbound 1. It's our primary inbound help desk queue. And as you can see here, there are several different report statistics related to this one group in our contact center. We can see how many calls have been accepted, answered, abandoned, so on, queue times, talk times, all those sort of things. Right now, I can see exactly how many agents are logged in or idle, how many are on a call, all those different statistics. So that's why this is the daily detailed group report, because it gives us a lot of details about this specific group. Once you do have a report built the way you want it, you can see that this is an untitled group report here, pointing at inbound 1. Once you have a report built the way you want it, I'm going to show you some other reports in a minute, but I do want to show you the option here that you have to save this report, so that we don't have to come in here and recreate this every day. I can call this Steve's report, and you have the option of saving this either as a public report or a private report. A public report is something that you can share with other contact center supervisors that have their own logins to this tool. They'll be able to see that report and pull it up. Or if it's just something that only you are going to use, you can save it as a private report. So once you have that saved, you won't have to recreate that report again. Over here under the open, I do have some other saved reports. Let's see, we can select all. One of the very popular ones is the agent brief report. And this report can show any number of agents and exactly what their status is right now. So here's a list of our agents. I can see their agent number, extension number. Their state is exactly what they're doing right now. Are they logged out? Are they idle, which means logged in and ready to receive a call? I'm sorry, out means they're on an outbound call. Log out means they're logged out. You also might see ACD if they're on an inbound ACD call. And if you're using any outbound calling in your call center, such as callbacks or the dial list feature to do outbound call campaigns, you might see some calls that are either reserved to make an outbound call or on an OACD call. Those are a couple of different states that you might see there. Of course, the state time, if we had anybody released, we'd see what release code they're using. We can see, since this is a daily summary, we can see how many ACD calls each of these agents has answered for the day, which are the inbound queue calls, as well as the non-ACD calls handled. A non-ACD call is any call that's not part of the call center. So if somebody called their extension directly, either internally or externally, or they made an extension to extension call or an outbound call from their desk, those are all going to be considered non-ACD calls. We also have current ACD group. We don't have anybody on a call right now to see. If you do have agents that are members of multiple groups, you can see in this column, it'll show exactly what queue the call that agent's on came from. So that is a very handy report. Another one I have here to show is a group brief report. So we looked at the group detailed report right here. This is a brief group report. Also has the same, inbound 1 group, but it also has our inbound 2, our Mitel team, our sales group. Several other groups can be added to this report. And it shows us just kind of the most important metrics for each of these reports. So for example, inbound calls in queue, how many calls are in queue right now, our agents release, same statistics here, but we can see multiple groups in the same report. Let's see, I have another report here I want to open up for you guys. Agent graph, we do have some graphical reports. Shows you with some color coding here what the status of the agents in this case. This is looking at our Mitel team. We can see that half of our agents are in release because they're orange, half are in idle because they're white. We do have a couple options up here to change the way this looks. We can add the percentages to the chart. We can remove the color coding key there, the legend for that graph if we want. That one is pretty straightforward. And one other here is the hourly inbound. These are kind of the top reports that most people like to see starting out from day one. The hourly inbound report, this is another report that's targeted a specific group, and this is inbound 1 again. And we can see in these 15-minute intervals exactly how many calls came in, how many calls were answered, abandoned, what our talk time is. This is a good way to see, you know, kind of what times of day are specifically busy in the call center to help with staffing and breaks and that sort of thing. So we've got several different reports here. One thing you can do with any of these individual reports is maybe you're looking at this agent report here and you've got a new agent that's not on this report and you'd like to add them to the report. So you can highlight this specific report here and you can come over here to the toolbar and you can select add, and that's going to list all of your agents here. So you can add an agent. I'll add Brian in here, say okay, add him to the list. Once you make a change to any of these reports, you will see that there's an asterisk up here in the report title. That means you're going to want to come over here and save the change so that that change doesn't go away the next time you close and reopen this tool. You can also, you know, of course, resize these columns to get things lined up the way you like. You can also grab and rearrange these columns. And then you can also right-click up here and add remove columns. And there are several columns that are available that may or may not be, you know, of value to you to show in the report. If you're doing, you know, outbound ACD calls, you may want to see that. Outbound ACD calls there. If you're doing chat, email, those sort of things, there's just some details that you're going to want to add to those report columns. Again, once you have these reports, you know, configured the way you want to make sure that you go to each report and save it so that you've got all your changes there. And once you've got each of these reports laid out on the screen the way you like, you want to come up here to File, Workspace, and Save as Default. And what that does, the Workspace is this blank slate that we started out with, and where we have all these reports, kind of how we have them lined up, the sizing and all of that. So we can save this as default, and what that means is that the next day when we open up this report tool, it's going to look exactly like we have it now. This is also handy if you're in here and maybe you're playing around with some different reports. You close a couple, you come over here. Whoops, let me do a new report. Maybe you want to look at a different group here. You've made some changes throughout the day, you know, trying out different tools, different reports, but you want to go back to the way you had it. You can always go back up here to File, Workspace, and Restore Default. It's going to tell me that I have a report that was modified. Wants to know if I want to continue without saving, which I do. And it's going to put this just the way it was the last time I saved that workspace as default. You'll also see different reports have the ability to show different color coding for different statuses or different time thresholds. So we can see here that an outbound call is showing me this yellow state as it's gone over a certain time. It can also turn red at a certain time. Maybe you want to know if someone's in a release code for more than 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. Those thresholds are actually set in the contact center director on a per group basis. You can set what those thresholds are, and those colors can change, as well as this tool can also provide an audible. It can either play a kind of just a beep or even a wave file can be set for whenever a yellow threshold is hit or a red threshold is hit. You can play an audible alert through that supervisor's computer. And again, those thresholds are set in director. I can show you where that's at when we pull up that. And then the last thing in the agent manager I want to show you, something that a contact center supervisor may need to do throughout the day is, kind of rebalance the agents. Maybe you've got multiple groups and you've got one group that's getting a little bit behind, the queue's building up, and you need to move some of your agents into that group. Rather than have to go around and kind of tap people on the shoulder and ask them to join another group, as a contact center supervisor with the appropriate permissions, we have a tool up here. This icon up here kind of looks like a tool or it's or a key, I'm sorry, and it's called the login manager. If we select that, what we have here is the ability to look at our different groups and see who's logged into those groups. And we can also see the available agents. These are agents that are logged in, but maybe logged into a different group. And we can move them into and out of different groups. So for example, I can come down here to the sales group. We don't have any agents in here. So if I want to take somebody and move them in, I can move Bill into the sales group. Now he's still in the group that he was already in, which was inbound 2, but now he's also in the sales group. As soon as I apply that change, that'll put him in both groups. Maybe you want to take somebody out of a group. Obviously, you can do the same thing here where you can take them out. Now, you're about to remove the last logged in agent from this group. So it's letting me know that this group will now have no agents in it. I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that, apply that. Another warning about this is if I took Bill out of his last group. So if I went over here and I tried to take him out of this group, it would give me a warning that I'm about to log him out of the only group he's logged into. And if I do that, I will not be able to then log him into any other groups because he's been logged out of the contact center, meaning that he's not available over here to be put into any groups. So he would have to, from his desktop, log back into the contact center and log into, his assigned groups. And then as a supervisor, again, I'd have the ability to push him into whichever groups I'd wanted to. So this login manager tool, like I said, it only affects agents who are logged into the contact center, and you have the ability to kind of rebalance what groups they're in. There is another tool that we can show you later on that will let you take someone who's not logged in and kind of push them in to the contact center if you need to do that. And that was what I had to show on the agent manager. So like I said, this is the kind of real-time reporting tool. This is what a contact center supervisor may have, open kind of all day on one of their screens. Sometimes it even gets put up on a TV screen in the contact center where multiple people can see it, see how the groups are performing throughout the day. Now that I've shown that, I'm going to move on and show the other primary tool of the contact center supervisor software is the historical reporting tool. And that one is simply called the ShoreTel Contact Center Reports. So this is the one that's going to show us the historical reports. So again, when we first open it up, we start out with a blank slate. First thing that we're going to do over here is you have an option of creating a new template or opening up an existing template. Now, I always recommend that we start out with an existing template. When you first install the contact center, there's a whole series of templates that are pre-built for you. Most of them start out with this, either RA or RG kind of naming convention. RA means that it's going to be an agent-focused report. RG means that it's going to be a group-focused report. When we're looking into these reports, it's very important to think about what kind of data is it that we want to look at, because there's going to be different data points available depending on if we're looking at an agent-focused report, where we're going to see things like login time, logout time, release time, how many calls a specific agent has taken, that sort of thing, versus a group report where we're going to see, queue times, what's the longest queue time, average queue time, number of calls in queue. Those sort of things, are specific to the group and wouldn't necessarily show up on an agent report. So a few of the reports, I want to show you a few of the kind of top reports that are good to start out with. The first one is this RA 1.2 agent performance report by date. This is kind of the most common report that people want to see. And when we open up this report template that's been pre-built, we can see there are several different columns available here. You know, ACD presented, not answered. So those are calls that went to an agent that they didn't pick up. We want to see how many calls they answered. You can see really detailed statistics such as, you know, ring time, talk time, how long they spend in wrap up, how many calls they put on hold, how long. Lots of different statistics are in this pre-built template. We can come along to these columns here if we want to, and we can add a column. So if we choose add a column out here, we're going to see a list of, you know, literally, what do we have on this list? 183 different data points that can be added to the agent-specific report. Like I said, there's a whole nother list for group-specific reports. And depending on what kind of configuration your call center has, there's some different options for even more data points that can be viewed. You'll see that we have several here that are percent-based. So you want to see, like, you know, what percent of the calls did an agent take versus, you know, not take. Or we have some that are specifically like hard numbers, like ACD answered calls. That's a specific number. You know, chat, if your contact center is doing chat, email, again, you're going to have different things that you're going to want to report on. If you're doing any outbound calling, again, we mentioned this in the real-time reports, again, in the historical reports, very important. If you're using the contact center callback feature, where callers can choose to request a callback while they're waiting in queue, you're going to want to look at the outbound ACD calls so that you make sure that you're accounting for those. Or if you're doing a dial list, which is another form of outbound calls, where you can do outbound calling campaigns against a list of numbers, you're going to want to account for those outbound ACD calls. In this case, I'm going to leave the template as it is, just the way it came from Mitel. And up here at the top, we see the date from, time from, all of this is blank. We need to come in here and fill this in. So you can just click up here in the top, and that'll open up the report parameters box. In the report parameters box, we can fill in the different details we need. So what agents do we want to report on? So you can come in here and select specific agents. You can add all. I'm going to grab a few specific agents here to throw into this report. Say OK once I have the agents I want in here. Next variable we have to fill in before we can run this report is the date. So I'm going to come in here and select this. We have a few different options here. Now the easiest, if you're coming in here to run a quick report, is just choose the specific dates you want to look at. So if I want to look at last week, I can say I want this report to start on the 6th, and I want this report to end on the 10th. I can say OK to that, and I will have a report showing me Monday through Friday of last week. If we want to set up a scheduled reoccurring report, then we can use these variables such as the now minus number of days or now minus number of months if you're doing monthly total reports. So let's say you want to do this as a weekly report like we mentioned. The first thing you have to think about is when do you want to run this report? And this may, you know, you need to know, does your contact center operate on the weekends? If it's a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday contact center, then you might run this report on Friday night or Saturday morning. If it's a 7-day contact center, you need to think about kind of how you define a week in your organization as to when you're going to run this report. So let's say we want to run this report every Sunday at 3 a.m. To look back at the prior week, we can use this variable here called now minus 7 days. Fill this in so it looks back from Sunday back to the previous week to now minus 0 days. We say OK to that, and every time that report runs, it's going to look back 7 days. So when we save this template and schedule it, that report's not going to show us the same week of data every time. Next variable down here is the time. Select here. You can select a specific time. Maybe your call center runs from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I prefer in most cases to just leave this on specific and leave it at 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. so that it encompasses the entire 24-hour period of that day. That way, if you come along at some point and maybe you change the hours of the call center with your call routing scheduling and make the call center open until 6 or open things earlier or later, you're not going to be missing report data because you've made the report kind of too narrow. So unless you have a reason to, I usually leave that at 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. so that it encompasses the entire day here. Say OK once we have all these variables filled out. It's going to fill those into the top here. So now we have this template ready. We can come up here to the report menu and we can generate this report. And it's going to fill in all that data that we have specified. So I can see here, here's each of our individual agents, and here's the 5 days of last week that we ran the report on. And we can see exactly what the what those agents were doing on each of those specific days against each of those variables that we added to the report template. So that's kind of how you would run it kind of on demand. I do want to show once you have this report template built the way you like it, it's very important to come up here and save it again. So we're going to do save as. And again, I'm going to go up here and call this Steve's report here. Now that I have this saved, again, I do want to point out that just like in the other report window, we do have the option to save this as a public report or a private report. If it's a public report, remember other supervisors can also open up this template and potentially modify this template. So just be aware of that. If you save it as a private report, then it's only going to show up under your login. Ask me if I want to save that again. Yes, I do. Now that I have this report template saved, I have the ability to come up here and schedule this report. So this is where we can actually set up this report, like we mentioned, to be run, say, every Sunday for us. So first of all, we have a schedule name. We need to fill this in with something specific. So this was Steve's report. I like to match the template name. That just seems to make sense to me. Very important here to select this checkbox. I'm kind of surprised that it's not something that they don't have selected by default. Synchronize with the source template. What that means is that if you were to come back and open up this template and add agents to it, change the time, change the different columns you have, you're going to want those changes to be propagated to the scheduled report that's running every week. If you don't have this checkbox selected, you can come in here and modify this template, but when the report runs every week, it's still going to use kind of the old template. It's not going to realize those changes have been made. So I think that should be checked off in most cases. Next thing we have here is when do we want to run this report? So we've built this as a weekly report. If you have the need to run it as an everyday report, every week, every month, whatever the case is, what day of the week do you want it to run? What hour do you want it to run? We said we were going to run at 3 o'clock in the morning. We can select that. Once we have kind of when the report runs, then we need the destination. What are we going to do with this report? You do have an option here for a printer. I don't know anybody that's using that option. In most cases, you're going to want to select the file option to create this report as a file. First thing is, where are we going to put the report, the file that's generated? When we select the browse, this is actually looking at the contact center server. So it's not actually going to drop this report onto your computer. It is going to drop it into a folder on the contact center server. In most cases, you have a folder for reports, which would be the ideal location. Maybe you have subfolders for different types of reports, but you can select the folder where you want this report to be generated in, set that folder. Then we need to give this a file name, or a base file name, as they say, because it's going to actually append, or we have the ability to append some details again here. So Steve's report. So the file name is going to be Steve's report.csv. Then we have the format here. For the format, we have a couple different options. The two that really get used the most are the Excel format. The Excel format's really handy if you want to be able to take this data, you know, copy it, sort it, manipulate it, do some different calculations on the resulting data. The PDF report obviously would be the preferred choice if it's a report that you want to be able to, you know, share with somebody, kind of give them a screenshot report. Select that as an Excel. And here for the file name, if we want to append the date and time, in most cases it makes sense to add the date and time that the report was run to the file name that you create, so that you'll end up with you know, multiple reports with the same name, but the variable there at the end being different to show what date that report was run. If you don't select that, it's going to overwrite with the same file name every time you run the report. And then at the bottom, you have the option, and in most cases, you're probably going to want to do this, is to email the report out. So you've created the file, and now we can take that file and attach it to an email, and we can send it to whoever we want here. I'm going to send it to myself. If you want to, you can use a semicolon here and add multiple email addresses, you know, from address, and then again the subject line. So it's gonna, the resulting subject line by itself is just going to show the date and the report. If you wanted to say that this was the weekly report, you can add that in there, and then the resulting subject line is going to look like this. We have the option again to append date, time, report name to that subject line. Once we have all that filled in, we can say OK, and we now have a scheduled report. If we ever want to go back and see our report schedules, we can come back here to our schedule list. Under the file menu, we have a schedule list, and here's where we can see that schedule that we just built. Maybe we need to come in here. We don't need this report anymore, so we can delete it. Maybe we need to come in here and edit it and have it run at a different time. Maybe we want to send us to some different people. We can come back in here and edit that schedule for the report. Actually, let me leave that there for now. So this was the agent performance by date that we looked at. I also want to show the group performance by date. That's another one of the kind of most asked for, commonly run reports. Again, this is a template, you know, created by Mitel that gives us most of the details that fit most contact centers. We can come in here and we can select one or multiple groups, or we can add all. Again, we can select the time that we want to run that for. Look at the last week again. The time, again, I pretty much always go specific to specific unless I'm looking, unless I'm like digging into a very specific issue. And then you can generate that report. And in this case, you can see instead of looking at the agents, now we're looking at the different groups, and we can see exactly how many calls came into the group, how many were answered, how many were abandoned. You know, several different metrics here to take a look at. These historical reports, based on the settings you have in the contact center director, can look at the up to the last 2 years of data, is how much they'll allow us to save inside the contact center report database. So you can go back pretty far with that. Couple of other reports that are very useful. One is the agent activity log. If we pull that up, and again, I'm going to fill in the parameters here. So we're going to look at, let's just say a couple of our agents here. What group we want to look at. Again, the dates and the time. Then we can generate this report. What this report's going to show us is kind of what that agent's day looked like as far as when they logged in, when they logged out, when they released, when they resumed. all of those agent functions that they're going to do in the Agent Interaction Center. So this one's very useful for seeing kind of what the agent's been up to, and making sure that they're kind of taking their breaks when they're supposed to take their breaks, and that sort of thing. So the agent activity log is definitely a very handy one. Don't need to save that. And then one other report we get asked about quite a bit is the abandoned calls log. So with this report, sometimes people want to see not just how many abandoned calls that they had on any specific day, but they may want to see those actual phone numbers. Depending on your call center and the nature of the business, you may want to see those calls that hung up and either potentially call them back, or maybe you just want to correlate that with your customer database and see if those were new callers or callers that you already knew. So the way we do that, again, what group are we looking at? So in this case, I'm just going to look at our inbound one. What dates are we going to look at? We'll go back a month here. And our time range. Once we have the report parameters filled in again, we can come up here and we can generate that report. And pretty basic information here, but we can see the date these calls came in, the time, the caller ID, and how long they waited before they abandoned. So if you have a need for that, that's one we do get asked about from time to time. So I want to make sure that I showed that. That is essentially the basics of the contact center historical reports. What I wanted to show now is we do get a lot of questions about, how do I know what reports a different supervisor may have set up, or maybe you've had some turnover, a supervisor that had some reports built is no longer working with your company, and you need to be able to access those reports. So what I like to show now is something that the contact center administrator has access to. Pull up another window here. Bring this over here. So this is the contact center director, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This is where you add your agents, add your queues, kind of create the call routing for the call center. So to be able to see the reports that we've just been talking about and what supervisors are kind of using what reports, we can come down here under the supervisor section in Director, and we can take a look at our supervisor accounts. And I'm going to look at my account, and I can come over here and I can take a look at the real-time reports. Remember, real-time reports is the same thing as the agent manager tool, which is where we were looking at the daily statistics. And I can see here are the different real-time reports that this supervisor has created and saved. And if I want to, because maybe we're transitioning the role from this supervisor to someone else, I can select these reports and I can change the owner of those reports to someone else. So I can give them to another supervisor like that. Now that report is gone from Steve's list. And if I come over here and look at Brian's list, now he's the owner of that report. So when he opens up Agent Manager and looks at his saved reports, his private saved reports, this report is going to show up for him. Same thing with the historical reports. So if I come back over here and look at Steve's historical reports, I can see the historical report templates that I have created and saved for myself. And I can give those, just like we did with the real-time reports, I can give those to somebody else if I want to. And then finally, the historical report schedules. This is something we get asked quite a bit, because a supervisor could create a report, they could schedule it to email to, half a dozen people possibly. And then at some point in the future, no one knows what supervisor created this report and what schedule is being run to email that report. So they don't know where to go to modify the email addresses that are being sent that report. So here you can take a look through all your supervisors and you can see what historical report schedules they have built. You'll also be able to see kind of when it ran last. This one has not run, so there's no details on that yet. But that's definitely something we get asked quite a bit. is where they can go and see exactly what reports are being run by different supervisors. And this can be done in the contact center director. And then one other question I wanted to cover that we had been asked. Sometimes when you're running a contact center report, say an agent-based report, and you're looking at your agent throughout the day, and you can see that they, you can see the number of ACD calls that they took, and you can see the number of non-ACD calls that they took, and maybe you're thinking that they took more non-ACD calls or placed calls. Maybe you had them calling people outside of the contact center, but the report is not showing that. Keep in mind that the contact center reports only track the details for that agent when they're logged into the contact center. So if you've given someone a task to make several calls kind of outside of the contact center, just on a list, maybe they got a list on a piece of paper of phone numbers that they're calling, and they were not logged into the contact center, you're not going to see that in the contact center reports. You're going to have to come back to the actual PBX inside of your Mitel Connect director, and in here you do have the report options here. We've covered some of this in some other webinars, but real quickly, you can run a user activity summary report. You can look at whichever specific extensions you want to look at. So in this case, I'll look at a range of extensions in our office, what dates you want to look at, what date range. Again, the time range, just like any other report, whether or not we want to see internal calls. I can run that report. Similar to the contact center report, that's going to give me, just a summary information, since that's what I asked for. But if you are in a situation where you don't think that the call counts for non-ACD calls in your contact center reports are reflecting all the calls that were placed, you can come back to the PBX and run a user activity report, and you can see all the calls that their particular phone extension made, which may not be tracked by the call center if they were not logged in at that time. And that was what I had to show you on the contact center reports today. Let's see if we have any questions.
Yeah, I'm ready to, if you want to pass control once you're done, Steve. I could show some of the things that you and I talked about in terms of additional reporting tools.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Don. I'll pass that over right now. Looks like the questions are clear.
Good deal. Yeah, it's great stuff. And I love it when, we get these kind of way homers. You pick up the tools and you say, wow, that's pretty neat. So you showed a couple things to me that really reminded me of how powerful these tools are and how many things you can use them for. So what I want to show is what we're using in terms of additional reporting tools. And I want to focus for just a moment on Bright Metrics. I know a lot of you have Bright Metrics, but I want to talk about some of the things that you can do in here, maybe you're not aware of potentially, or things that are kind of power tools. So that's my primary focus. Bright Metrics is a cloud-based additional subscription. It's pretty low cost. It takes your Mitel data and takes the PBX and call center data, throws up in the cloud, and gives you a graphical view of it. It has a lot of options. You can get dashboards, real-time reports, call flow reports, insights. There's some administrator tools and so on. So quickly on the dashboards, which is where I'm at now, you can see across the top here, I've got a variety of dashboards. This is how dashboards are edited. There's an edit button. It's permissions based. And you can see we have a lot of dashboards. I'm going to also show you a neat thing here. It's all clickable, zoomable. So when you click and zoom on something, it'll highlight it, and then you hover and shows the data point. People love that because you can kind of quickly see insights or data. It's displayed incredibly well, very powerful, very easy to use. And this is the Vertex Consulting Live Contact Center data. So you're seeing our live data. ECC Group 1 is our primary call answer group for IT service tickets. And you can see all the metrics we're measuring here: call counts, exit reasons, abandoned times, outbound calls, queued times, all that stuff. Right now we're on a queued time of about 2 minutes max, month to date, so very low. average queue time is closer to 29 seconds right now, so very fast on the answering. Inbound group 2 is an overflow group. We have similar data there. We have a help desk dashboard. So all kinds of dashboards. You can basically slice and dice the data kind of any way you like and show whatever you want to show. I do want to zoom in on our Mitel team, which is a new team we started about 2 months ago. Now when you call into auto attendant, you can press a button and go straight to the Mitel team, bypassing the help desk altogether and get straight to level 3 support. So listen for that option if you call in, and that'll go to Juan, Nick, Dave, and then overflow to our gurus as well. So you'll see right now that nobody's queued, agents are logged in, all this data is kind of live. This is really neat at the bottom. It's an agent status, and this will move. And the reason is it's a window of time. And if I go over here to Dave's, I'll see for a minute here, he had a wrap status. Prior to that, he was on an Acd inbound external call. And that call shows the number, the connected time, the duration is all there. This was his wrap up. The duration was 9 seconds. Then it showed that he was idle. The idle time was 6 minutes, 27 seconds. And now he's back on another call, and it shows he's on with that number now, been 5 minutes and 16 seconds. Very neat. Nick is logged in, but he's on an outbound external call for 41 minutes. He's on a tech support case for a client. He'd been on the phone for 41 minutes. So that's all live data, very cool. These are editable. I do want to show you one kind of way to edit it. I'm going to add a chart here at the bottom, and I'm going to choose contact center data. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a variable. I created a net new variable called %no-wrap. And what I wanted to do was to demonstrate how many calls are coming into this queue where agents are not applying wrap codes. And we use those wrap codes for diagnostic purposes, so we kind of need them. But, you know, not everybody's perfect, right? Nobody is really. So real quickly there, I created a new table. I added a variable. I extended the view. Now I can save that. Now on my dashboard right at the bottom, I've got this %no-wrap, and I can click and zoom. I can hover, and I can see, hey, we had a day where we only had 14% no wrap. We want to get it to 0, of course. Why wouldn't you? But still, you can see how easy it is to add to those dashboards. Jumping down for just a minute, kind of out of order, I'm going to go to the administrator tools, and I do want to show you where I did that data customization. So this is a custom variable. You can create it, you name it, you can explain it. I expressed it as a percentage, and then here's the formula. You can also see some interesting formula examples. They've done a great job of kind of showing us what examples are here. Here's one that was abandon wait time divided by all calls minus abandons. And then here's the filter and edited it. And then you can drop it on a report. So super slick capabilities there. Moving around, I want to show another thing that people don't look at a lot, and that is insights. This is very slick. So insights gives you two things. I'm going to show you both. One, it gives you scorecards. So scorecards look at 5 key KPIs that are standardized KPIs. It looks at those and compares each agent to the others and to standards we've defined, and then gives you a green, pink, red, kind of are they good, not good. And you can see by agent name kind of who's doing what. So what we'll see here is, like, let's pick on Jenna. Jenna's great. In the period of time between 8/1 and 8/31 last month, she answered 179 calls. That's 97% of the calls presented. Averages 2 minutes on the phone. She transferred 22% to somebody else. She was idle 73% of the time. She wasn't idle. She was obviously calling other people back and doing emails and so on, but that's it. So in terms of metrics, you can see here, the agent's calls answered is relative to the scorecard target. So we created targets. She's above target, right? The answer rate, 99.56%, we wanted 100. That was our target. So she's kind of in the pink zone here. Treatment efficiency, which again is another variable which we've defined. And you can easily see there, you know, they have scores. What's cool about this is you can edit it, and then you can change these variables and change the numbers and change the percentages, so you can have a custom scorecard that's an easy to read one. Last thing I'll show you, you schedule that custom scorecard, it'll pop up in your email or your team's email every day, and they can see their, oh, my bad, they can see their scorecards. So very simple to do. Another thing I'm going to show you under Insights here is staff forecasting. So staff forecasting, this is not slick like DVSAnalytics with rebalancing and all that kind of cool stuff, but it's good enough for some folks. So what staff forecasting does is it looks at your prior group data, looks at calls that come into that group over a period of time, and based on that, gives you a forecast for the future. The idea is you would create a schedule. It's based on contact center data. This is the group name. I have a target wait time and a variance, what week I want to do following concurrent, who it gets emailed to, and then how often I send it out. So maybe on Wednesdays of every week in the morning, I get a forecast for next week based on the past week's data. So that's the idea. I generated that report. I dumped it in my email, and here's what it looks like. So what I'm going to show you briefly is they have done a great job here, Brightmetrics has, in explaining what this data is and how it works. And they have a good job of kind of telling you, hey, remember these things when you're evaluating this report. They also give you a good example report and show you how the data should look. And then lastly, they tell you how to read that chart. And then the example is on the left here, you'll see the time of day during the day of week. At the top, you'll see the number of agents forecasted. And in the middle, you'll see that goal of agent numbers. This one, as an example, shows a range of between 3 and 6, but has a blue bar with a graph with a midpoint and says, hey, you had 208 calls. We recommend 3, 4, or 5. 4 hits your KPIs, and down here it'll explain that to you. That means your 208 calls forecasted in that interval. 3 agents at minimum to help assure you can answer these calls within the upper threshold. 4 agents within the target, and 5 agents to potentially answer calls in a lower threshold. So then we go down to our data, and you'll see the Vertex data. I'll zoom out. We don't get as many calls as a big call center does, of course, but I'll zoom out a little bit, and you can see it shows me kind of the whole week first, Monday through Friday, and it shows it. Nobody's really calling it 4 a.m., but the 8 a.m. window, 12 p.m. window, 4 p.m. window, and so on, right? Kind of a big view. And you can see it's basically telling me I need kind of 2 agents to meet our metrics. Then I scroll down to the daily view, and here's Monday's daily view, which is very detailed. This is broken down into 15-minute intervals. So I can see the call forecast based on historical data in 15-minute intervals, showing my upper threshold, my target, and my lower threshold, and a bar graph. So that's a really cool way, potentially, to get a staff forecast based on historical data using something like Brightmetrics, having it push it to your email, look at it once a week. Last thing I want to show you, I already showed you dashboards. I'm going to jump real quickly into just reports themselves, and I'm going to show you how to do an on-demand. One I get asked about a lot is this group performance by date. So for example, you might want to say, hey, how is my Mitel group doing in answering calls over the last 30 days? I click that, check box it. I say I want to look at it over a 30-day interval. This is relative, right? Or I can just say last month. Simple, check box. Now live, all that data is there. These columns can be clicked for sorting from small to large, large to small. All of these are clickable, very cool. But let's click on a day here. Let me go to Thursday and see how you drill down a highly requested feature, because you don't have to run a new report. It does it for you and it drills down. Now I'm in the actual call data itself, and I can see the party name, kind of who answered the call, was it within the target average speed of answer, was it queued or not queued, was a wrap code used or not. All this is clickable and sortable. And I can also look at, can scroll over here a little bit and look at additional data, queued time, ring time, talk time, hold time, all that's there for me. So if I click on talk time total, here's a call that's an hour long. I click on that and drill into it even further, and this is going to give me cradle to grave data, showing me every element of that call. Call came in, hit an IRN in my contact center group, rang for 14 seconds, was answered by the Mitel team while I was on the phone for the customer from 11:12 to 12:12. I can also show it in the PBX perspective, which I can click here to get that cradle to grave, a little bit different than the contact center data because it could have been in a menu first. Now you can see this is who it is that called in. They hit our auto attendant. It shows the option for the Mitel team, which is great. People are using that now. And then you see the rest of it. And if you have integrated recordings, you can click this and also view the recording. So very, very slick and quick, easy to get the data you need, and easy to kind of have those performance metrics. So if you want more information on that or you want to get some help with it, let me know. Glad to help you out. We can show you how to do a forecast, how to set up a scorecard, how to maybe set up some team metrics and use this tool to help you continue to deliver, the outstanding support that you need and to make sure you're measuring against your customer care strategy so you can give people positive feedback, improve outcomes in the call center. So that's really kind of a super high level view of some of the things that people don't use a lot in BrightMetrics, but I thought if you saw them, maybe you would kind of dig in and experiment a little bit. We'll stick around for a minute. That concludes the content for today, but I will be staying online, observing the chat and questions windows. So if you have any final chats or questions that you want to give us, Steve and I are both here. Glad to stick around as long as you like. I want to make sure we end on time. We will post this on our YouTube channel tomorrow and send a link to everybody for that as well. Also, we are making that donation to Interfaith for $20 for everybody who attended today. So you did good. So thanks for helping us do that too. So we'll sit tight, wait for any questions or chats. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.